We did have one more thing come out today that will interest some of you. John Talty of CBS Sports released the top 25 list of bad college football coaching hires this century, since we are now a quarter of the way through the century. And to no surprise, Tennessee had some people on there, a couple different submissions. Two of them made it. Two of the hires this century made it. One of the bad ones was left out. And it's a little bit surprising, but when you see the list, it's not actually that surprising that these guys were left out. Or at least this guy was left out. But the two guys that made the list made the top 10. They were low top 10, but they did make the top 10. So at number 10, you have Derek Dooley. And we already talked about him a couple weeks ago. In his wannabe political career, I guess you could say. Haven't seen any updates on that lately. But yeah, he is number 10 on the list, and for good reason. You know, you start 6 and 7, you think you can build off of that season, but you go backwards in year 2, and then you just stay neutral at 5 and 7 with the team that was capable of, honestly capable of winning the East that year if you play a little bit of defense. I felt like Tennessee should have been way better than 5 and 7 that season. But you had Derek Dooley and Sal Sunseri running the show, so it was a disaster. So he is number 10 on the list, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked that he's not higher than the other person that we're going to mention, because I didn't know the rankings going into this, but I mean, you already said the overall records, and not to mention all the talent he had. I mean, I still think to this day that some of those Derek Dooley's teams were arguably some of the most talented teams I've seen since I've been watching Tennessee, but they did absolutely nothing with that talent. And then on top of that too, I'm pretty sure Derek Dooley only had one ranked win, if that. And like,
I don't even know what ranked win it was. I couldn't tell you, Jordan.
Yeah, then I guess he didn't, because I thought there may have been like a ranked South Carolina team that it's
He
been
never
a while.
beat South Carolina.
He never did.
No.
Then, I mean, exactly. I'm shocked that he's at 10 and not higher, to be honest. Yeah, because
let me see if I can pull up the list here for us, because that will explain why he is so low on the list compared to some of these other guys that we have seen in here. I'll go ahead and tell you, Tennessee's next coach on the list is Jeremy Pruitt, not Butch Jones. Not Butch Jones. Butch Jones did not make the list, which is a surprise probably to some of you. But I just think in the grand scheme of things, there have been worse head coaching hires across college football than Butch Jones at Tennessee, even though it is a very forgettable period in Tennessee football. But Jeremy Pruitt is number 7. And I think there's good reason for this. I mean, number 1, Derek Dooley never had a loss like Georgia State. That never happened. Number 2, he plunged the program into darkness with a cheating scandal. Derek Dooley never did that. Jeremy Pruitt was cheating and losing to Georgia State at the same time. You can't be doing that and expect to keep your job. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I guess the more that you lay that back out to me, it makes a little bit more sense. I'm just thinking about like the Kentucky win that he had at one point and how he was able to turn that. I think it was 2019 season around there towards the end. But yeah, the cheating scandal, and then only winning 4 games, which is the lowest that Tennessee's ever had ever. And fun fact, by the way, before that season where Tennessee only had 4 wins, there was only 2 schools in the FBS that have never lost more, or never won less than 5 games, and that would be Ohio State and Tennessee. And then Jeremy Pruitt, of course, broke that. So now it's just Ohio State, unfortunately.
Well, Butch Jones was actually the one to
Oh,
break
not Butch.
that.
I didn't. Did I say Butch Jones?
You said Jeremy Pruitt, although Jeremy Pruitt did have a 3-win season, although I don't consider COVID a real year in sports.
I'm getting mixed up. But yeah. I guess it was
okay,
Butch Jones.
So here's the list. You've got 6 guys ahead of Jeremy Pruitt. Ty Willingham from Washington. He did have an 0-12 season in 2008. That is something Tennessee has never had. Number 5, Charlie Weiss at Kansas. Some of these Kansas guys have got to be pretty high on here. I would imagine, just with how bad some of those teams were from basically 2007 all the way up to 2022. Chad Morris at Arkansas, number 4. That is by far the worst SEC hire I've ever seen. Probably going to be the worst SEC hire any of us see for a long time. Because Jeremy Pruitt lost to Georgia State. He did not get blown out like Chad Morris did by both Northern Kentucky Northern Texas or North Texas and Western Kentucky. I'm conflating. He lost both of those games by 4 touchdowns, which is very, very bad stuff. You don't want to be doing that as an SEC coach. That's a job breaker right there. 2-2 against group of 5 opponents, did not win an SEC football game. And then past that, I don't know most of these guys. Tied for first, you have Mike Price at Alabama and Michael Haywood at Pittsburgh. Of course, the Mikes are the Alabama version of the decade of dysfunction, which is, of course, what Tennessee entered after the departure of Lane Kiffin, or really the departure of Philip Fulmer from the football program as the head coach. But that's at least your top 7 right there from Jeremy Pruitt onward, because he was 7, and then you had Derek Dooley at 10. And I was talking with some people about this earlier today. Jeremy Pruitt is, to me, in that same group of coaches like Will Muschamp, who they were just meant to be coordinators. They should never be head coaches, ever.
Yeah, I mean, his defenses were pretty good when he was at Alabama. And I know when Jeremy Pruitt was first hired, I mean, I'm sure you were probably the same way. I mean, you get a defensive coordinator from Alabama and you see all their success that they had with Nick Saban, and you're just very hopeful thinking that he's going to be a pretty good coach. I mean, a lot of these coaches have from the Nick Saban coaching tree, but Jeremy Pruitt, huge disappointment.
Yeah. I am of the belief that the Sabanites have polluted the sport for the most part, aside from one, and he's established a dynasty over there in Athens. Meanwhile, Georgia has had 2 guys that have in theory committed espionage at 3 different schools in the SEC East. They all did it at Florida, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and that is, of course, Derek Dooley and Will Muschamp. They made those teams bad in order for Georgia to get good. That's your classic message board theory. Because somebody made an edit to Will Muschamp's little profile, because he's like some kind of defensive analyst at Georgia now, committed espionage at 2 SEC East rivals so Georgia could win 2 national championships, which it could very well be the case. You never know.
Insider trading here in SEC.
That could be the case.